Hello, everyone. I'm Michael D'Alessandro. I'm the exhibits director at Northwind Art, and we're proud and happy to have this exhibit, If I Had Wings, which 9 artists are presented in on the theme of birds and bird as a metaphor, which is a really interesting theme, and the exhibit is a delight. I will be showing a small video of the exhibit, a teaser, in just a few minutes, but before we begin, tonight we have Keaney Rathbun, Bethany Rolland, and Stephen O'Donnell, and they will be in conversation here about their artwork for this exhibit. There are 3 of the 9 that are exhibiting with us. And I'd like to read a quick land acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today in Fort Townsend on the ancestral homelands of the S'Klallam, Suquamish, Makah, Chimacum, and Twana Skokomish nations, as well as many other trading tribes. Native peoples have cared for these lands and continue to do so today. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude. And I will then begin sharing my screen. I want to show you this quick video, and then I'll introduce the artists. So bear with me while I get this share screen going. Hopefully everybody could see this. Let's see, let me go back, replay, here we go. All right, and now I will introduce the artists here. Let me go back to that share screen, and I want to show some of their work while I'm introducing them. Let's see here. Bear with me. Let's go back to, there's a quick flip backward. Okay, here we are. Is everybody seeing that particular screen? Or are you seeing a Word doc now?
It's picture.
Okay, good. I'm trying to multitask here. All right, so this is If I Had Wings, the artist talk, and I will introduce, let me get back to the, oh, I'm gonna have a hard time actually scrolling here while I'm reading off the same screen. These are the technical details I did not anticipate. Well, let me read the introductions really quick, and then I'll scroll through some of the work. Keaney Rathbun's artworks are autobiographical narratives. The images are figurative, gestural, and are deceptively simple metaphors of human experience. They are joyous and whimsical, emotional and poignant. They represent an optimistic and naive spirit embracing the moments that make up his life. These bas-reliefs that you will see soon are created by carving and painting linoleum. It is the same kind one would use to create the linoleum block prints. It is his intent by doing so to add a sense of sculptural depth to the paintings, and it is for this same reason that he chooses to frame these carvings in shadow boxes that enhance their objectness. Bethany Rolland began a regular practice of drawing and painting over 20 years ago with Phil Sylvester at the drawing studio in Portland, Oregon. It is there she discovered to trust her impulses, that a particular mark or brushstroke made with commitment to what she was seeing and feeling could lead to a richer and more complex understanding of subject. By using transparent layers of color and levels of abstraction, painting is the medium for discovery of what captivates her. It is an opportunity for her to learn elemental truths about self and other. The well of felt truth seems limitless. Stephen O'Donnell is a mid-career fine artist. His work is widely collected both in this country and abroad. Entirely self-taught, his paintings are notable for their exploration of gender, their explicit historicism, their obsessive attention to detail, and also for their humor. His work, both literary and visual, has appeared in the literary magazines journals Nailed, Menacing Hedge, and Gertrude. He is married to writer and graphic designer Gigi Little. Their book, The Untold Gaze, a collection of Stephen's paintings paired with short fiction by 33 authors, was recently published. And they live in Portland, Oregon, with their dog, Nicholas. Now, let me show you real quickly, as I admit more folks here, show you some of these images. These are the those lovely carved linoleum blocks that Keaney's put out, and they are quite object-like when you see them in person. And then Bethany's work. And finally, Stephen. All right, now I'll go ahead and stop the share, and I'll hand it over to Keaney, who will be leading us in a conversation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks everyone for coming this evening. Before I start the conversation with Bethany and Stephen, I just want to acknowledge that this exhibition came about as a result of a collaboration between Martha Pfanschmidt and myself. Martha lives in Port Townsend, and she and I have done many collaborations, curatorial and elsewhere, and other kinds, like traveling abroad to sketch together over time and things like that. And birds are imagery that we both use quite a bit in our work. And so this is actually the second time we've curated a show, including artists who have drawn and to the image of birds, and more importantly, the metaphorical use of birds in their work. Anyway, I just want to acknowledge Martha, even though she couldn't be here tonight. She'll be hosting another talk in August. So to get started, I just want to actually ask the other guests, why birds? Why do you paint birds? What's your attraction to them? And then this is going to be a very informal, so all three artists and Michael will have a dialogue, and hopefully it'll be a conversation that leads in surprising ways. Bethany, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I paint birds because I can't help myself. I feel like they've sort of chosen me. And I could, sort of trace this back to my youth, just being really interested in nature, finding a lot of solace in nature and kind of being an observer. I specifically, and unfortunately, I don't have any paintings of this peregrine falcon, but I had a really significant visitation from a peregrine falcon in 2016 in the winter. There she is. Mm-hmm. So I'm a practicing nurse practitioner, psychotherapist, and this is a photo of her where she appeared one morning on the balcony. I worked on the 8th floor, and so you can see downtown Portland in the background. What's interesting is that I had been painting a peregrine falcon, quite a large one at home, since December, and this happened on January 16th. Anyway, she stayed for 4 hours, and it was really a transformative experience for me, and not in just ways of isn't she beautiful, and I mean, she sat there and preened, and she had probably what was part of a pigeon on her talon. So I think she was digesting. That's the big curvature you see on her chest. I thought she was cold and she was puffed out, but when I checked with Bob Salinger at the Audubon Society, because I was really curious about, where she came from and what this was, and he said, no, she's probably got a pigeon in there, and he said she's not banded, so she's likely a migrant. Which I found even more special. So because I was working that day, I actually had a couple people I had to see and turn away from her, but she stayed. And so the last 2 hours of her visit, I just pulled up a chair and observed her. And I thought I just wanted to take it all in, because I've never really had an experience with a wild creature, just, inches from my face, because she was not afraid of me. And I've been painting her ever since in various forms. I did a show called Migrant a few years ago, and it part of what changed me that I'm still kind of exploring is this was right when the migrant crisis was really developing in Europe, and people were drowning, and it really made me think about sort of the gritty realities beyond my balcony, and really looking at things unsentimentally. And I feel like I'm still kind of changed by that experience. And for some reason, I just can't stop painting her and birds and raptors, especially.
How long ago did this experience happen?
This was January 16th, 2016.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
would actually ask you about, because, I've seen your work over years, and generally it is raptors specifically. I haven't seen birds of any other kind.
Uh-huh.
You want to speak to that?
Sure. I do have some other paintings of common yellow throats, and I used to paint crows, actually. And I think what's evolved is there's something about, speaking of metaphor, there's something about being drawn to an apex predator. I don't know what that's about. They're a indicator of sort of what's happening in our environment. I feel like there's something necessary about painting them. I just find them beautiful, but they're also they kill birds out of the air. I mean, there's things I don't quite understand myself, but and I don't just paint birds, even though some people have said to me, "Oh, you're that lady who paints birds," which kind of has that, "Oh, you're the crazy cat lady." Which I sort of am too, but I find them to be raptors, especially intermediaries. And when I said I can't help myself, I feel like in painting, which I'm sure this is true for any of you, listening or the guests here, that you pick up something when you're standing in front, painting a particular creature or whatever it is, and it kind of lets you know what it's trying to tell you.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to that later, because but Stephen, why don't you tell us about your relationship with birds and their appearance in your work?
They're usually small. That's helpful for me. I don't have to paint so much. Well, that's partly true, actually. But It's kind of something that's grown over time. I didn't set out to be, you know, a person who painted animals. It was kind of a surprise. About 6 years ago, I had a show where I wanted to do some different things from what I was known for, excuse me, which is mostly figural people paintings. And I don't know quite where the idea came from, but juxtaposing a small animal with jewelry or jeweled objects. And so it just kind of expanded from there, where I, you know, that was a rabbit and a squirrel, the first two. And then I just went from there and included birds, and probably the birds have become the largest proportion over time of the animal paintings that I do. I can't really tell you why. I don't know why. I know very little about birds. My focus is pretty widely spread through the avian community. I'm not, you know, I'm not particularly like Bethany is, you know, attracted so strongly to raptors. I've done a lot of crows. I think probably because so many live around me, so I can observe them and be charmed by them. But you know, in most of my work, I objectify things, and they are beautiful, amazing, jewel-like creatures. Even when they're not brightly colorful, they're just the level of detail and delicacy. They're just amazing things. So yeah, what more than that?
Well, you know, I know that you just this year put a bird bath in your garden. So and
that didn't go so well.
it was really enjoyable for me to see that process of you attracting them, and then what and unfortunately
What happened?
It was up that I ended up with 2 bird baths in a new, you know, we have a fairly new garden, or we're developing garden here in the house, and finally got around to putting bird baths up, and not much was happening at first, and all of a sudden basically what it turned out to be is crows bringing dead-ish things to the bird baths and eating them there and leaving things. So like, yeah, 4 small dead animals in 2 days, you know, and it's like, put the bird baths away. But then people said it was because it was nesting season or fledgling season, and that something had to do with it. But anyway, we seem to be good now. I put one of them back. It's, you know, it's a delight. And having a yard, because my wife and I lived in an apartment for the first 10 years of our relationship, our marriage, and we've been here 6 years, I think, and just developing kind of a relationship with birds in general. You know, flying into the yard and watching them and listening to them, because there's lots of trees around, and trying to figure out which one's which. And then, you know, every time I see a hummingbird, you know, go for the flowers, my heart stops, you know. So they are just a transfixing thing. So when you encounter them, so.
Mm-hmm.
we have we have a tropical garden here in Portland ourselves, and so I've always loved birds. Actually, when I was like before school, like I was 4 or 5, my mother gave me a bird book, and I still have it to this day. It's this gigantic bird book, and from then on I wanted to be an ornithologist. I had no idea what an ornithologist did. I did actually go into science, but not that. And so I've always had this really dear, there really was always very important to me. I mean, part of it is their form, right? And they're just such beautiful, as Stephen was saying, beautiful and unimaginable colors and patterns and shapes, which is that. And then, you know, they just, you know, the work that I have in the show is a series which I'll talk about a little bit, but generally my work is figurative and landscape based, but there are birds or creatures often in it. And I often think of them as God creatures, in the sense that they're observers of me living my life as much as I'm observing them, if you know what I mean. So, and you know, different birds mean so much, very different things to me. And they, pardon me. Anyway, so that's how I started. The series that is in this show, I call In This Moment, and they were all so because of the pandemic, I was going through what I'm sure everybody was going through, feeling isolated and anxious and whatever. And so I created this series of work, truly sort of as affirmations about the things, the traits and characteristics of that I wanted to surround myself with. So as you saw, it's patience and affection, companionship and patience, persistence, you know, and that's what all these paintings are about. And I then put them in these little gold leaf frames. And I actually, which I don't normally do, I added these little engraved brass plaques on the front to really make them icons about, so yes, they're bird paintings, but they're really about that trait, that metaphor that I cherish. And that's where this whole series came from, that I'm showing in this particular exhibition. I want to, so go ahead.
Oh, I had a question about, did the trait come from the particular, I mean, did an experience with the bird, or did you?
Well, it's certainly, so the actual birds themselves that I use. So when I travel, I keep track of, I mean, I'm not one of the, I don't get up at 5 a.m. with binoculars and go out find birds, but I have them in our garden. We've had 50 plus species in our yard here in Portland. And when I've gone to Australia a couple times for a month to sketch there, and I just sort of keep track. And Australia is an amazing place for birds, by the way. And so this series started with birds that I saw in Australia. So a lot of them are that. And then when I couldn't go abroad because of the pandemic, I went to Sun River for a month to draw, which is in Central Oregon. And so I kept a list of the birds that I saw there. And so there's some of the birds that I saw over in Central Oregon. And then the last few birds are ones that I hope to see in the wild sometime in the future when I can travel again. So that's how the specific birds that I used in this show came from. Yeah. Yeah. So Stephen, I know you sort of mentioned it a little bit, but I'm going to ask you directly. Because all of your birds have jewels in them this time, and I know that that's.
No, actually, one doesn't, and that's the first time.
Oh, you're right. Oh, okay. We'll speak about that then. But we have to. So tell me about the jewelry first. I know we.
Well, again, I don't know where it came from, because that's the theme of all these animal paintings I've done. I just started, you know, a monkey. It's actually a monkey and a squirrel. The monkey had a lorgnette, and the squirrel had a Fabergé egg in the first one. And, you know, I don't know why, you know, we artists are strange sometimes, and I just go with it. It's something that usually works. And so I just kept doing that. People reacted to it and I liked it. When forced to examine that, you know, it seemed to me that it was making a confrontation, a juxtaposition of one of the most, you know, especially if we're talking about birds, one of the most refined, beautiful creations of nature. You know, they don't do anything to themselves to look as beautiful as they do, as magical as they often are. And then jewelry is this incredibly highly refined thing that's created by man. You know, one of the most, certainly the most costly, the most manufactured things that man can do, most specialized. So to put those two forms of beauty that are created in impossibly different ways, I thought was interesting. Also, the two things have no relationship to each other at all. You know, a bird has no use for a pair of earrings, or and a jewel has no use for a bird. So I don't know. It just seems to that forced confrontation seems to make a narrative that I don't try to control very much. I just, okay, here's a bird I like, here's a jewel I like. Let's just put them together and see what happens, And I don't really think beyond that pretty much, so.
So then is there significance to the one that doesn't have a jewel?
Perversity, because I'm known for adding jewels, and I just thought, this bird has character. He doesn't want a jewel, and so he didn't get one. And I felt that was kind of cheeky, both on the bird's part and mine also. It's like, people expect the jewel. Where's the jewel? Where's the jewel? And there isn't one. But yeah, that bird is, that little crow or raven. Frankly, I can't tell the difference most of the time. He just, he has a life of its own, and I wasn't going to argue. So.
Nice. So Bethany, I want to go back to the idea of your work. You were talking about it as being intermediary. Is that the word you used? Mm-hmm. So again, every observer sees someone else's artwork completely differently than the artists themselves do. Yeah. So one of the things that I project on your work, if you will, is that it feels like transformative, sort of almost transfiguration. It's very emotional, it's very powerful, but it feels like particularly because of the raptor, it's such a powerful symbol. But then the way you paint it, it feels like it's a transmutation between, the bird and you as an emotional state. Is there any resonance of truth there?
Oh, definitely. I mean, thank you for that. I know when you put your paintings out there, you give them up, and they're there for people to respond to as they will. But I have heard that before. The emotion in the bird, and I think that's at times I've thought, well, am I just sort of projecting my own feelings? Well, yes, of course I am. I can't help that. I do paint a lot of birds where their gaze is directly at the viewer, at me. And I'll mention Rick Bartow here. Rick Bartow is he unfortunately died in 2016. He's a Native American Wyatt painter, sculptor, very prominent, important artist in the world. When I first saw his work, it was in the mid-90s, I was so struck by his combination of exquisite detail and form with abstraction, and with a lot of focus on the face and eyes. And I think what resonated with me with his work, besides the deep emotion of it, and he has a story to tell about what he's been through in his life, because I'm by nature kind of a private, introverted person, and the more I paint, the more I reveal about myself. I feel like I am kind of revealing more about who I am by what people see in the work. It's it's you don't always know where the work is going. Since the screen is showing right now the snowy owl, that's a snowy owl. I did have an encounter with the snowy owl out at the South Jetty near Astoria, Oregon, when they had the eruption of snowy owls come down because there was it happens every so many years. Anyway, this snowy owl is looking right at you. She's not intended for that landscape. Actually, I start abstract often with my paintings. Some of my paintings have many layers underneath them, some don't. But the painting was inspired, not consciously, but came out of the fires last year. And actually in this painting are the ashes from Minto Park along the Santiam River, where there was so much destruction, Mill City, Detroit, the big fire that happened last fall. And so this snowy owl is not really intended to be in that landscape, but there's something I feel about the bird looking at us and saying, what are we doing? So that's what I can say about that.
Actually, I know this is, because I'm an artist too, I get a little fascinated by technique. And, I'm aware of Stephen's work because I know him more than I know you. But there seems like there's some similarities in technique, believe it or not, to my eye, that it looks like you use thin washes of paint. Is that, and I know
I do.
that you do, right? Yeah.
I do. These are acrylic paintings. I use a ton of medium, the glossy glaze. That keeps it very interesting for me. Acrylic's very forgiving. You can have a lot of layers. So,
and Stephen, you also do many.
Acrylic is forgiving, she says.
yes.
Oh, here we go.
Because I use very thin layers also. But yeah, like if I want to redo something, it's not easy.
Okay.
I have to basically take it down, paint it to its beginning state before I can go back again. So I guess it depends on, where you're going, but.
Yeah, well, I'll admit, when I look at your work or Keaney's, I'll say, oh my God, I totally don't know how to paint, because it's so exquisitely beautiful. And sometimes I get that, but we all strive for beauty and perfection, I guess.
In different ways.
In different ways, it's all different, yeah.
Well, some similarities I see in all three of your artworks are the gestures of these birds and so I wanted to ask if a lot of study, maybe ask each of you if a lot of study goes into how these birds are presented, and I see that in birds in flight, in this case the one we're looking at, this bird stretching its wings, and in Keaney's pieces, how the birds are presented in those block prints or those block carvings.
Go ahead, Stephen, you can go first if you want.
Well, I blocked out the question.
Okay.
How we prepare, is that what it is?
Well, how you capture gesture, how you prepare, do you study the birds? Are there lots of studies, drawings, that kind of?
No. I don't draw at all until I'm going to work on a painting, and then draw on the surface I'm going to paint on. I just don't have the patience to do studies. I usually work from photographs or a combination of photographs, which, if I'm going to be quite honest, has gotten me in trouble with some of my paintings. There's one of my favorite paintings I've done where I realized I did not give the crow enough toes, and it's because I don't really know the anatomy of birds or much of anything, and so I'm faking it a bit. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going for what the image I want to create, because the way do my work is it's worked out before I basically start. I know what the finished work is going to look like. Unlike Bethany, who and a lot of artists, it sounds like, find their way through it, which is it's a beautiful thing to me. I think I would enjoy the process a whole lot more if I did that, because it sounds fascinating. But basically, I'm just creating what I've already imagined. So.
I have to say that's amazing to me, particularly this painting, Stephen.
Mm.
So, it's so, because you can't really get a bird to sit still for you.
No.
So to draw this bird this way, or to paint it is so, you can't see a photograph even of that. I mean, in order to study it, to draw it. That's what I'm just stunned by what you've captured in this particular painting. For winging it, if you will. Oh man. So, and for me, I actually do look at lots of images online. Some of them I take, but some of them are online. And actually the birds, obviously when you're doing an artwork, it's about composition as well as the bird form. So I probably would work out the bird form separately, and then I'm actually integrating it into sketches that I've done wherever I've been traveling. So for like the magpie you're looking at there, I sketched that in real time in Central Oregon. And it wasn't until later that I even thought about putting the magpie into it. So then, I just looked at a lot of magpies, on images online, and then did a drawing and had to make it until it fit properly into the landscape that I'd already drawn. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I do with my birds. There are a lot of them, and luckily there's actually there's a photographer in Portland, and he used to do professional photographs of lots of artists. His name is Kavitka, and he has retired from photographing artists' work, but he's moved, and he's an incredible photographer, and he takes lots of wonderful bird photographs, and he posts them on Instagram and whatever. And actually, one of the hummingbird paintings that I've done was drawn from his photograph with his permission. And he said, yes, any artist that wants to use his images to study the artwork, he would be more than happy to provide images of the birds that you can actually study them, because they are in flight, and they're all which you really can't see in order to draw that quickly. At least I can't. So I would recommend following him on Instagram if you're interested in that sort of thing.
That's great. I also use photographs. I try to take my own as much as I can. This image is sort of made up. You'd never see a burrowing owl with a red-shouldered hawk with a rough-legged hawk in a tree together. So this is in some respects, this is more accurate in terms of what they look like, but not in terms of what they do. And I've always kind of thought my relationship to how I put on paint or put on the clayboard, which is the surface I use, is more poetic than anatomically correct. And, in reference to Stephen, what you were saying about just sort of seeing what happens, I do often start abstractly. Sometimes I know generally, I want to paint a bird. A lot of times at the end, I will make some really strong marks that may obscure an eye. For some reason, I tend to obliterate the left eye. I have no idea why. But, and then because, we're Portlanders, we know what it means to put a bird on it. So I was working abstractly. I didn't know where the painting was going. I thought it was actually pretty nice as just a straight up abstract painting. And I put a raptor on it and it looked ridiculous. And it actually turned into a horse. So I'm not close to the idea of other creatures kind of speaking to me.
Absolutely.
And it helps that these subjects, the birds, come with their best dress on, for sure. They're also beautifully apportioned with feathers, and such an interesting subject.
I think palette is another thing that I'm with the three artists here tonight that I think is really interesting. You know, you, Bethany, to me have a very narrow palette, you know, and I see the same range, and I love them. I'm not, you know, they're very different from how I paint, but I'm transfixed by the mood of the palette that you use.
Oh,
Yeah, and then Stephen, of course, you know, uses color in a very different way, I would think. I mean, you know, I know that you have your certain favorite backgrounds, like that wonderful green that you use, Stephen. What do you think about, how do you think about color?
I always sound like the idiot artist because I don't think about it. It's so dumb.
Have to really.
Just get out of my paint and don't think. I just have, you know, have very strong likes and dislikes. And certain color combinations. You know, it'd be sort of limited sometimes. It's sort of like some artists will add all sorts of colors. I mean, Keaney, your work is much more colorful, maybe less so than it used to be.
I think it is. Still,
but
I can't help myself.
Yeah, but it just, you know, I just always want to kind of tone it down a little bit, not too much, you know, just like maybe two predominant colors, and then neutrals. So yeah, I don't, I have very strong taste, and I like certain colors and I don't like other colors. So,
you know, when you were just talking about that, it brought back to mind the thing you said the other night about Coco Chanel, and when you're getting dressed, that you put on all your jewelry and whatever, and then you look yourself in the mirror, and the thing that you see that catches your attention, take it off and put it away.
yeah.
Actually, that's sort of what I was just hearing as you were speaking. You follow what I'm saying at all?
I think Betty brought that up, but
Yeah.
I went with it. Yeah.
mhm.
So we're actually getting to about 10 till, Michael. Should we, unless, do any of the other artists have anything else they want to say about their work before we move on, or more questions for each other, or how are you feeling?
I'm good for taking questions.
Ready to move on? Okay. Is that okay with you, Michael?
Yeah, that's great. So if everyone would like to open their videos and unmute themselves, you're welcome to join in the conversation, ask questions of the artists. We're a small enough group, we can manage it in the Zoom platform.
Hello?
Or not.
Well, if not, we can just continue talking.
And you could just raise your hand and we can call on you, or just start speaking.
Okay. Well, if not, I hope that you folks will be able to get up to Port Townsend and see the show in person, because the town itself is lovely, the gallery is beautiful, and the show we're very proud of.
And Martha Fanschmidt will be hosting another one of these with a few more artists on August 11th at 7 p.m. It's a Wednesday. And you can go to our website, northwindart.org, and register. And then it'll be a similar platform as this on Zoom and recorded. Any questions for the artists while we have a few minutes?
Okay.
Well, I just want to say that the entire group are seamless in the curation. So Keaney and Martha did a fantastic job of curating, and we get the work oftentimes at the gallery, and we have a show designer who conceives of how to place it in the space, and I think he did a really fantastic job of knitting together so many disparate art forms, you know, mediums, and putting them seamlessly together in a room. And the theme really presents itself in a great way. So yeah, I do encourage everyone to come see it.
I do have a question.
Yeah, Matthew.
Hi, yeah. I just want to tell everybody, hello, everybody. Hi, Stephen and Keaney and Bethany, and hi, David. And I just want to say that you guys were fantastic. It's really interesting to see the questions, and I'm thrilled to hear what you guys. The work is beautiful too, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Quite a compliment coming from Matthew, who is a beautiful painter himself, of course.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you guys, your work is just beautiful. It looks really wonderful. So I can't wait. I'm going to make a trip up and see that show because it looks really fabulous.
Oh, well, Michael, I think we may be done.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Stephen and Keaney. And we will sign off right now. And you can see this recording on our website in a week or so. So thanks so much.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Mm.